Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's the World Chess Championship 2024, Game 7. It's Ding Liren, it's Gukesh. The score is 3-3. We've had three draws in a row. We've had three draws in a row. Ladies and gentlemen, today was insane. Today, maybe the match is turning. Maybe the match is turning. Maybe someone will seize the initiative. Will they? Won't they? Let's have a look. So it's Gukesh again, and he has played e4 and he has played d4, and today he surprises everyone with knight of 3. It's the ready. And he plays this like a traditional ready uh, slash Catalan, because if you plug this position in, you can get this via different move order, all of this, and it's like a Catalan type system. So we get knight to f6, castles, castles. The players have done nothing special. Ding has, supported his center. You don't take unless you want to, try and hang on to the pawn. There's no reason to activate this light squared bishop. And Gukesh here plays a novelty rook to e1. Jing has played this setup before, not yeah, this setup before with these pieces like this. So this is a novelty to him. It's never been played against him, and it does cause him to think. At which point he takes the pawn. We get e4. So the reason you also don't take this pawn is because it allows white just to play e4, and that's probably the whole idea behind rook e1. You get this very quick e4. The light square bishop comes out, pinning the knight to the queen. Gukesh just reinforces his knight, and then Ding goes for this move c5. It's a mistake. So Gukesh has surprised Ding in the opening. He's up 40 minutes on the clock, and he's now better. So the question will be, can he massage this slight advantage, this time advantage, into something concrete and something winning? Let's have a look. So he plays d5, and Ding finds probably the only move to keep, yeah, the only move to keep the game relatively balanced and not spiraling out of control, e6. Gukesh throws in the attack on the bishop. The bishop has got nothing better to do than trade itself. And Ding takes, and then he can develop his knight. It's the only move again. Ding, when under pressure, we've seen it in this match, when he has to find only moves, he will think for a long time, but he will generally find them. And he plays knight b7. Gukesh takes the pawn. So we're all level, kind of. White does have this pass pawn that Ding is going to have to blockade. It is going to become a nuisance. And if, this pawn ever goes up here, landing a knight on one of these two squares will be very important. But Ding plays the move b5, just kicking the knight and forcing it to the edge of the board. It can go here, but then it kind of gets in the way of everything. And we get the move queen to b6. And you've got to start creating things on the side, otherwise this pawn will become way too much. So we get the bishop coming out here, it'll support it on the square. Rook to e8. Fine move. The advantage from when that mistake was made, it was 0.6, 0.7. So the advantage has gone down a little bit. So Ding is fighting back. He's not spiraling out of control. He is down a lot on time, but Gukesh is well out of his preparation now, and he's thinking on his own. So we get rook e8, rook fe8, and Gukesh queen to d2. Not too much of a problem there. And we just get Ding making another improving move, sliding his rook to the center of the board. Nothing wrong with what he's done. And Gukesh completes his play with bringing this knight to return home and to maybe try and route it to somewhere more useful. And Ding also, his knight's coming here. He's going to maybe try in the future, if we just give black and white an edge move like queen here, Ding's going to plop his knight here. Because if you take, you lose your queen. So that is what he's going for. The knight here is going to become possible. So that is why, if we reload the position, we firstly get b4, just asking what is this pawn doing? Are you going to allow me to just activate my queen or my knight? Ding pushes the pawn. It does create a bit of a hole on this square. So we get the bishop coming in here to attack the queen. The queen slides over to a6. And we get, firstly, again, the bishop coming here, putting pressure on the knight. That knight can become a problem because you can very quickly attack it if the queen should ever leave its defense. So we get the rook trade, and we can take this pawn here, take the pawn on a2. So Ding goes up a pawn, but the rook comes, and we're going to try and trap the queen. The queen's not trapped, but I'm going to show you in a moment. We get queen to b3, and this is a mistake. This is a complete mistake. So it's 0.9. This plan of taking the pawn on a2 was not correct, and the only move here for Ding to keep the evaluation below +1 is to play this incredible move c3. Because after takes, you play knight takes. Okay? And if bishop takes, now you can play bishop takes d4 first, and then you can play, just give me a moment. It wants, uh, you would obviously, you can take here and here, and then black is fine. Oh, no, not like that. You would take here, and then you take the bishop. You don't take the knight. Sorry, my apologies. I couldn't remember which piece to take. This game was very exciting. I just couldn't remember the incredible lines that the tactics that would have sparked from c4. Sorry to say, it didn't happen. Queen Ding naturally goes to the only safe square for his queen, and we get rook to a3, forcing the queen down to b1, and then you bring the king up to g2. And this queen is offside, and now Gukesh can firstly play uh, Ding can firstly play rook to d7, just trying to defend this pawn. But we get rook to a5, and these pawns have maybe strayed a bit too far. They can't be defended. Ding tries, but it's getting worse and worse for him every move. He's down 7 minutes. He's got 15 minutes to try and make another 14 moves. So it is going to be incredibly tight for him. Gukesh has got 7 minutes more. He's still got to make his 14 moves in 22 minutes. But he's got a 7 minute time advantage, and he's better on the board. It's Ding to find moves that are holding barely. So we get rook to a3, just attacking the queen again. The queen slides down. We get rook to a5. Ding's more than happy with the draw, but Gukesh decides, all right, take the pawn. Time to take the pawn. And we get queen to d3, which is a mistake. A second mistake. It's often not the first mistake that kills you, it's the second one. Things are now substantially worse. If and only if Gukesh plays bishop to e3, because this position is much better for white. What we get in the game, though, is that he goes here and he protects this bishop, and he's going to look to win the knight. But by giving up his own knight, you can take, but it allows this incredible queen f5 to come in, and we get this position. And this position is still better for white, but is a lot harder to win than the previous one we would have had with queen still on the board and the dynamics of the position. So Gukesh can go and win his pawn with rook c5. Ding will develop his knight. The problem is here, you can be up a pawn. But if the right pieces get traded and you're up a pawn and we've got a bishop and a knight left, the knight can always sacrifice itself for the remaining pawn and draw the game. So if rooks come off, we head closer to a draw. So any piece trade now, Gukesh has to consider very carefully. If the knight comes to the center of the board, the rook gets put behind the pawn, and the knight comes here. It makes use of this pin, so you can't take. The rook unpins itself, but that's not the right way to go. You've got to go back. You've got to first go rook to c4 to threaten the knight again, and then here it wants to repeat once, and then probably go down to rook d2. Yes, rook d2, just retreating, saying, okay, you can have this, but I get d6, and I'm going to get my pawn through eventually because the bishop will control that square, and we will cause you problems long term. These doubled pawns can be a problem. If you want to disrupt the white's pawn structure, you can use it, but long term they're not going to be helping Ding unless he wants to create counterplay. So Gukesh firstly goes the wrong way. The time is now only 2 minutes difference, but they've made it to move 37. So they've played this portion of the game relatively quickly. Gukesh plays a5, and all his winning advantage has basically disappeared. Ding brings his king forward. He plays h6 to just kind of control a couple of squares and get it moving. We get king to f1, so the king is going to come towards the center of the board. And now, would you believe it? Ding Liren has worked so hard. He's made it to move 40. He's got 3 minutes, and he makes a horrendous mistake. He plays this move with 7 seconds left on the clock because they get 30 minutes added and 30 seconds bonus. He plays this move with about 7 seconds left on the clock, and it's a losing move because you can just go rook h4 and try and pick up that pawn, and it's too many weaknesses. The king does not belong here. Instead, he can just play knight c8. He can play knight c8. He can play king to g6, just sliding the king over, or he can play king to g7. The king does not need to come forward, but it does. We do get rook h4, and we get knight takes d5, and we get rook takes h6. And Ding Liren makes another mistake. His knight goes to the wrong square. It doesn't need to go there. You need to play either rook b7 to try and round up this pawn, because if the pawns all get traded, this game ends in a draw. It just does. You, rook b7 is what you needed to try, or knight, you know, that's the best move, because knight to c3 is just worse. It's a mistake. You have to play rook b7 in this position. Knight c3 seems natural, but rook c6 comes. You've got to retreat the knight, and then you. So Gukesh here plays king e1. He needs to play h4. He's got a pass pawn. Fast pawns are there to be pushed all the way to the end of the board to become queens. Instead, he plays queen to e1, which gives up a portion of advantage. He's still winning, um, but he elects to try and bring the king to the center of the board. Low of me to call these mistakes. I'm telling you what the engine's telling you. I'm telling you what the commentators tell you. Get this pawn moving. Uh, Ding can only do what he can do. He pushes this pawn. His king, see, kind of stuck. Doesn't need to be there. And now we get h4. So Gukesh does eventually play h4. The rook comes in to threaten the bishop. And we get the bishop returning. It should not return. The bishop should not return. You've brought the king here. You can bring it up. Because even though, yes, you can have a check, the king just goes to king e3, and that causes you more problems because the king's now come to the center. So we don't want that. The king should go up to protect the bishop. The bishop should stay here and keep pressure on the knight and support it from a distance. The bishop going here is no good. It causes you more problems. It's going to allow the knight to come in, etc. And you will see it unfold in the game as Ding finds the only move in this position. It creates counterplay on the white position. See if you can find it. f4. I told you a long time ago, these pawns are not great as assets, but they can be used to try and weaken the pawn structure. It's takes, and the king is getting in now. He obviously can't go to that square, but the king is getting closer to these pawns. He's going to round them up. The bishop comes here to attack the rook. The rook slides back. This rook looks to attack the pinned knight. Oh, not the pinned knight, rather the attacked knight. And now pinning it to the king so it can be captured. But just in time, f5 protects the knight, allows the rook to still move around. This rook gets behind the b pawn, but it's not enough. The game is simply a draw. The king can slide forward. The bishop gives a check, and the king gets in. And now you've got too many problems as white. You can't worry about winning because you've got to worry about getting mated in various ways. So the rook slides back. We get the rook sliding over, threatening a discovery. f4, but the rook can simply retreat, maintaining the threat of discovery. The rook slides in the way to block. And now we go here. And we win this pawn. It does get pushed, the only way to keep it protected. But the knight comes, and there's no further way to protect it. Gukesh slides his rook up. You can see he's down to 30 seconds. Ding Liren calmly playing this out. He's got 4 minutes on the clock. Gukesh living by the increment at this stage, trying to find something. He loses that pawn. He wins that one. It's 2-on-1. This is liquidating very quickly. We get the knight coming in. It hits the rook. The rook slides up, and Ding slides his rook across. The bishop tries valiantly to protect the pawn. This pawn tries to escape, but we get the king sliding up, chasing the pawn. all the way. The bishop tries to threaten the knight because you can't take, obviously. The knight slides out the way. The rook attacks one last time. The king comes to protect. You don't take this just yet because you cause yourself some problems. So the bishop makes one final move. The knight goes all the way there. It can be taken, but the rook comes and this will be a dead draw. Rook gives a check and you take the pawn. King comes up. This is liquidated perfectly for Ding Liren. He was under considerable pressure, and this game just fizzles out into a draw. If you're wondering why this is a draw, uh, the knight will come and sacrifice itself for this pawn, which it does. And Ding Liren, the game doesn't end here, but he sacrifices his last pawn, and it ends in a draw. Because you can't checkmate with the bishop, and game 7 ends in a draw. It ends in probably a fair result. You would say, how's it fair? Ding was worse for a considerable amount of time. It's fair because it's chess, and you can be worse, but you've got to put the final nail in the coffin. Gukesh has to convert his better position objectively into a win. And Ding, when the time came to find the correct moves, to find the correct plans, creating counterplay with f4, there, came just in time, and he held on. And Gukesh misses a big chance here to try and take the lead. And we look forward then to game 8 tomorrow, where Ding Liren will have the white pieces. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment to say how I can improve. If you want to see more from me, subscribe, and I will see you next time.